whole world is underselling us. You know it as well as I do, right? I can't think of anything better. The fact that they aren't talking about our team with the depth that we have at every position. I've been saying it to every that I've spoken to in the media, right? In terms of our goalies, our back end close defensemen, our long stick middies, our short stick middies, our face-off guy, our midfields, and our attack. We got the best players at each respective spot. Saying what we did. We set the tone. They got to fall in our horn. You guys understand that? And that comes down to you handling your role and embracing it regardless of what it is. We don't give a who plays. This is about winning, and that's it. That's on three. 1, 2, 3. Ah!
And we're back. And I'm pleased to have, I'll call him the most vocal SU alum, and he knows we were just talking about it a little bit. Matt's not able to join tonight, but I'm pleased to have a more vocal alum that will speak his mind, and the only one that I see that will speak his mind. If I could give you that credit, most of you know him. He is a local product, so we'll start with that. Obviously, you've been on here before, but I want to go back first to your college career, and then we'll get into this year's team for a minute, obviously. So what was your first experience with lacrosse? I don't know if you and I actually talked about that. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't.
Yeah, well, my first ever experience with lacrosse was actually accidentally. So, first of all, I live in the West Tennessee School District, so I didn't realize I was around there, literally. So it was during the summertime. We were actually was towards the end of the school year. It was actually the end of May. I was flicking through channels, and the first time I witnessed lacrosse, it was Princeton, playing Syracuse in the national championship game, and Cuse lost. BJ Prager scored on a feed from Ryan Boyle to win the championship, but that was the first time I ever saw it.
Right.
And after the game, I just like it was like middle of the fourth quarter. I'm watching, and I can't keep my eyes off of it. I just keep watching. I'm like, this is interesting. This is interesting. Like, and it's easy to pick up or whatever. I'm like, all right, get it. After the game, I go upstairs, and my dad was out of the country. My dad was doing a teaching. It was like a part of a huge teaching symposium in Cuba.
Okay.
And so it was just my mom here.
Yeah.
Go upstairs. I'm like, Mom, I don't know what this thing is called, but I just saw some on TV, and I want to try it.
Right.
And then shortly after that, we go to play it against sports.
Yep.
Buy me a stick, buy me a helmet. They signed me up for rec league here in West Tennessee, and it kind of just took on its own life from that point on. So
that was the Messier years, right? Messier was
Messier was there.
Okay.
Messier was there. My the man who honestly I always say I think he actually not only saved my career, but I don't think my career would even started had it not been for him, just because of the public perception of where I live. Because I've only been playing lacrosse for about 5 months when I made the team at West Jenny.
Okay.
But Rick Chapman.
Okay.
Ricky Chapman, that was his name. He was my modified coach. And then Thomas Donahue was the JV coach.
Yep.
And Mike Messera was the head coach at West Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the quick college because I want to, you're the perfect person because you can talk about the recruiting back then.
Yeah.
I don't want to say back then like you're an old person because we're around the same age. But back then versus how it is now, because obviously it changed a lot with the NIL. Was it as simple? I think you and I talked about this before, but I just kind of want to dive back into it first.
Sure.
right? You wanted to go away from Syracuse. I have that right. That was
Yeah. I didn't want to stay in. I didn't want to stay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Can you
correct.
dive into that a little bit more again, if you want? However much you
Yeah,
want to say.
sure.
I'll say it that way.
Sure. I wasn't. I felt like at the time I had not experienced anything else, and I did have aspirations to go elsewhere. I wanted to be outside of Syracuse, and when the recruiting process was going, I saw that I was going to get an opportunity to go elsewhere.
Right.
But then it comes down to, and these are things that now I talk to kids who ask me about college recruiting and stuff. I didn't look at fits or anything like that. I just knew I didn't want to be, you know what I mean, in Syracuse. And so
you want to experience another town.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, so what I actually wanted to go was Maryland. I want to go to Joe Walters is probably my all-time favorite non-Syracuse player of all time. So he was doing this thing at Maryland at the time. And I just love Dave Cottle because he was the coach there as well. Yeah. And so it was just a place that I desired to go. And then once the recruiting started, I realized I would have an opportunity to go there. But it was actually how I stayed in Syracuse was a deal I made with my mom.
Okay.
So
I don't know if I've ever heard this story. Maybe you have told me, maybe you haven't. So.
This is so my father watched every game from the time I started playing lacrosse and football.
Yeah.
Up until I retired. And so he saw everything. And usually he traveled to see the games. But when I was in high school, my mom had only been to like one game, I think, like in my high school career. And she felt like she was bad luck because she went to another game and we won. But more times than not, the games, we didn't lose much. When we did, she came to the game. And so she felt like she shouldn't go to the games or whatever. And I just said, my decision came down to Cuse or UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
And then UNC Chapel Hill's coaching staff got fired. And as you know, if you're a high recruit for one coach, you may not be a recruit for another coach.
I was going to say you're going to be the forgettable player.
Correct. So my idea was, but I still wanted to go to Chapel Hill, by the way.
Right.
And so some divine intervention. I won't get into the other story, but like we were at Central. We were playing I was playing for Central for the Empire State games.
Yeah.
Long story short of it, my mom was, I picked Syracuse, but I said, Mom, I don't want to stay in Syracuse. And then but I said, but here's my deal. Because she was, emergency. What if something happens to you?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. But I had said, okay, if I stay in Syracuse, you have to come to every game.
Okay. I like that deal, though. That's a great deal, obviously, because
you haven't been to any games.
Right.
Your son's actually pretty good. You should probably come watch me play.
I was gonna say, Mom, I'm getting recruited by D1 schools here. Like, the least you can do, obviously.
Yeah, right. And she honored the deal.
Right.
So she said deal. And I signed, I think, within a week of that conversation, I signed.
Yeah, I don't think I ever heard that story. Maybe you had told me, and maybe I heard versions. I'll just say I heard part. Yeah, maybe you told me the bits and pieces, but I never heard the story about your mom.
Yeah,
it's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, you go into your pros, you play a little bit. We don't really have to get into that because there's a lot deeper. Yeah. This is a college. We don't have to get into that. We'll just say it that way. You obviously know what I mean. I want to focus mostly on a little bit on the women's because I know you've been to a couple of the women's games. So I'll touch there first. What were your expectations for the women's from what you saw going into what it is now? How has that changed?
The program, I don't think understands how good it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that they're holding something back, and I don't know whether it's just the resources or whether it's just the way that they're going about the recruiting. But I do think that they're a better program than the men's team.
Yep.
I just don't think they believe it.
Okay.
But I do feel like we're struggling with the women's game at least. We're struggling with the side of Northwestern's, return to grace, right? Return to the throne. The Marylands we beat, but like point is that the options are we can't lose a game like a Clemson But
Right.
point being is I don't think that we know how good we could be. I think
Okay.
that the school. I've watched the ladies. I think they just don't have the depth. The issue right now is just we're not really deep. I think
Okay.
when you play against some of the better teams, depth is everything.
Right. Well,
Yes.
I mean, you when you have a kid like Alexis Spallina specifically,
Yeah,
who flips from Syracuse
correct.
to Clemson, because let's be fair here, they spent a lot of money on their athletic facilities there. Let's just call it what a
Yeah.
spade a spade.
Yeah.
That's a spade a spade, in my opinion. That's, if you ask me, I'm sure if you ask other people, that's a deciding factor why she decided to go there. I don't know the ins and outs. I'll probably get a message from her father saying that's the exact wrong reason she chose because of that. You know what I mean? That's the rumblings. Let's just phrase it that way. That's what everybody started to hear. Do you think that the fans support the women's program enough? I mean, like I said, you've been there enough to kind of see both sides of it, obviously.
Well, we're in the world of, and this is, I say this in all respect. I mean, we're in the I hate to say this because I'm not meant to take shots at people when I say it, but the bandwagon of support women's sports is here.
Yeah.
If there was ever a time to support women's sports, it's when
Amen. Absolutely.
It's the popular thing to do. Go watch the ladies play. Like watch the girls get after it. And these women are, I mean, they're incredibly skilled.
Right.
And I think that, I think we've shortchanged them. I think that from what I've seen, at least the games I've been to, I have seen like a few of the lacrosse boys up in the crowd.
Yeah.
But it's also like you're not talking about the same numbers that are at the game.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
It's a completely different crowd going on too. But I think that they're not supported enough. I don't think that some of our best players are supported enough. I think Emma Ward should be a poster child for like Syracuse athletics, let alone just the women's team.
Right.
But I do feel like, unfortunately, let's be honest, she may have double the number in 44, but she's not a JT Spallina, unfortunately, as a man on the men's team. And so 22 is still going to make more of a splash. But I do believe that the women's sports in general, for those who want a bandwagon, you're not taking advantage of the opportunity to make yourself look good.
I was just going to say, at least from my experience, I've been to a couple. I've told Matt my work schedule doesn't really allow me. And I know that's an excuse. I'm not trying to make that excuse. Like, if it's different, I would if I could. Yeah. But the thing that I see, at least, is it's mostly the parents, players. That's just my experience. There's a couple of, obviously, diehard Syracuse people, right, that follow both the men's and women's. I'm not criticizing them. It's like you said, it's the bandwagon people, the people that only go to the men's game, just for an example, for the Vermonts. And then they don't show up the rest of the year. Yeah. It's the same exact thing, except I want them to show up for the women's because I've made that. I think that's the easiest way for me to say it. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe you have a different thought on it, but
I think also the Carrier Dome is supposed to be our 11th man.
Yeah,
11th number. Like it's supposed to be the thing that gets you over the top.
Right.
Most of these facilities, that, especially when we hit the road. Outside of Syracuse playing in a football stadium in Utah, right? There is rare that you're going to play in a place that's as eye popping as a Carrier Dome.
Yeah,
JMA Dome.
JMA. We could say
JMA.
We'll call it Carrier. I like to call it Carrier still. So
Carrier still. So but there's not many places like the Dome. So when you have opposing teams come in, that's supposed to be an advantage in itself. Because our rule was when I was at Cuse was we don't lose at home. Now, granted, we did lose at home, 3 times or whatever. But the idea was it's supposed to be the thing that gets you over the finish line and with competition that's comparable.
I agree with that. I think the easiest comparison stadium I can make is Manly, right? Because that's what most of the women's stadiums, they're not the size, obviously, right? Because the seating is a lot bigger than Manly.
No.
But it's that open. Where you hear, like, for the most part.
It depends on where. Yeah, like, so like the soccer stadium, right?
Yeah, that's more of what I'm talking
about.
That's
like soccer stadium, because our soccer team obviously wins the national championship, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, now people are out there supporting. So it sounds bandwagony,
Yeah.
because now you're only supporting the teams that win. And
Right.
I get it. We like a winner, but at the same time, it's also like our bread and butter used to be right, our basketball team.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And our lacrosse team.
Yep.
Football team brought in the most money, but we also knew, like, bro, like,
yeah, it is what it
basketball
is. Like, it
Yeah.
is what it is. Lacrosse is going to be the one that's championship weekend. Women's is going to do what they do. Basketball is a March Madness, and
Yeah.
football is just football. That's just the way it always was when you and I were growing up. Obviously, like, so obviously the reason I didn't bring you for the women's though. Let's just be fair and blunt here, and it's not like because I know like to be fair, you know the women's game better than I do, so that's why I wanted to touch on it.
Yeah.
Because Matt and I have joked about it, kind of talked about it a little bit. I'm not as experienced watching the women's game. My sister played it growing up. It was the most boring thing as a kid for me to watch, though, because like it's the stop starts.
Yeah.
I never really invested as much time as I should into it. I'll be fair and honest with my own criticism of that. But let's get into the men's side because I see some Instagram comments. I see them because you're the one person that just happens to show up. I'll just say it that way. So
I've only said one thing, by the way. I guess
that one thing was the one that caught my attention. I'll just phrase it that way. Going into the year, was your expectation Final Four or bust?
It was a yes. Okay, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes and yes, but the yeses are for different reasons.
Okay.
Okay. The first yes was yes because if you look at how many of our young players are now juniors, if you looked how the team was constructed, it was going to be, they were playing so young, you get it. They're going to go through the growing pains. So you're looking at them like, okay, freshman year, while we have a lot to look forward to. Sophomore year, if we got there, we'd be like, we're ahead of schedule.
Right.
But this is the year where you bring it together. Everybody is now, we've played enough lacrosse games. We've now gotten a taste of NCAA tournament. We were a step away from the Final Four. This was the year you're supposed to put it all together.
Right.
And then the other yes I would say is because if anybody knows the pressures of playing at Syracuse University, it would be their head coach.
Mm.
And if we do not get to the promised land, we didn't say win it. We said the Final Four. We just said get to Boston, right?
Yep.
So if you don't get there, it will be I'm going to say the first time for me, I guess. It'll be the first time you've heard it very vocally that maybe we didn't make the right decision on the transition from the girls, the women's team to the men's team. But I say yes because, yes, we had a lot of our young players were playing early. They were playing a lot.
Right.
And the other part is there's this, if you know anything about from the alumni, we speak regularly, especially during the spring. So, like, we're all talking.
Yeah.
And this is the year where, like, if you know anything about when you have a team that's expected to at least go far, possibly win a chip, when you start looking at the way the season's going, you start looking like, do I see the moments? Do I see the guy? Do I see the coaching decisions? Do I see the close game management? Like
killer
tight
instinct.
game? Do I see
it? Killer instinct is another thing.
Do I see it?
Yeah.
And as of at the moment, that's a no.
Right.
And that's hard because that's where I think the team, as much as I love them, I do mentor some of them. It's the part where you just got to be honest about, bro, if we don't do it this year, I just don't see it happening within the Spallina era.
Right. And I think to your point, like last year, right, I, as a fan, as somebody who's not an expert, we've talked, you and I have kind of joked about it a little bit. Matt and I joked about it. I'm not an expert. I'm just that diehard fan who says every year they're going to go to the Final Four. Right. And then last year it's like, okay, make it to championship weekend.
Yeah.
And then they do that. They almost do that.
Yeah.
I was like, I can deal with that if the next year is a progression of that. Right, you know what I mean? Like they had the excuses last year though, and I don't want to say excuses because that's not the right way to say it. they had the young enough roster where you could say, okay, they don't know it yet.
Right.
They don't know what it takes.
I think that the huge elephant in the room is that no true Syracuse lacrosse fan or honest lacrosse fan wants to say, wow, we have lowered our standards.
Yeah.
We have lowered our standards. Yeah. It's no longer we have the team to win the championship. It's can we get to a Final Four at least?
Yeah.
We have a chance to get to a Final Four.
Right.
I mean, you don't construct a team with the idea of, well, man, we're going to win 4 games and then, you know what I mean, graduate
right.
and go on with our lives. No, you're trying to build a team that's obviously meant to last. And I think that that's the hard thing right now for our program and for, like I said, true diehards is if it's not this year, I just believe that if it's not this year, I do not believe next year will be that year either. Right. I think we'll go another, but I just think our standard has lowered really. It's slowly but surely lowered itself.
I would agree with that to an extent. And I say an extent only because I'm trying to think of the right way to say this without coming off like the jerk of the jerk SU fan. I'm not saying towards you, but I'm going to get the messages from a lot of people. Like, I think we have the fan base now where they haven't experienced the Final Fours. That's the way that I'll say it.
You're right.
Like, so they don't know what it was like. Right? You and I growing up, obviously, in this area, a lot of people that used to watch the team, right? Yes. You know, like Final Four bust, Final Four bust, Final Four bust. That's what it always was. And I think whether we want to admit it or not, when you had that drought, I'll say drought in that way, it lowers the expectations reasonably to an extent, right? Because now it's not, okay, we got to make it turns into Final Four weekend. Now it turns into just making the tournament, unfortunately. I hate to say it that way because that's not my expectation, right? That's not yours. That's not a lot of people that I talk to, but that's the casual. That's the easiest way I can say that. Like, okay, so we blow out Vermont, we blow out Jacksonville. Like, that's a great example. And everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
I don't know why.
And said, this is that, this is them. And Matt and I had a conversation. We were kind of joking about it, a little tongue-in-cheek. And I was like, I want them to beat them. I wanted them to blow both of them out. That was my expectation. Yeah. I didn't expect anything less. Like I told Matt, I said, if they don't win by like 10, right? It's not a win because you should beat a Jacksonville.
Yes.
You should beat a Vermont.
Yes.
Like these are teams you should beat every year, like that you should roll. Now, Army's not on the schedule. That's a whole different ballgame because they play a whole different style, obviously.
Yeah. They'd run us off the field. With the way that Army has kind of revamped their program, the way they play, they'd run us off the field.
Yeah.
They'd run us off the field.
Yeah. But then I'm looking at the schedule here. Just have it pulled up. So then you go into Matt and I had thought Towson was going to be good.
Me too.
So you're looking at that and you're like, okay, that's the test, right? Because that's that first test. They do that. They look pretty good. And then they go to Maryland. And then a lot changes at Maryland. We can play the game of whether it's the weather. We can play the game of no, I'm just
I'm laughing because of I don't comment a lot, but it's funny to like read the disapproval or to the what's gonna be the next thing that we're gonna say why that team was better than us this game.
Right.
And I'm only laughing because of just the amount of things that I heard, and I was like, man, like I don't have a show. I don't have anybody's, I'm not going to call in the radio, but at the same time, it's like you can just tell that there's a disconnect between fan base and then also like, if you know the game, then you can watch the game, or I can tell you. My best friend, we were talking about the game before the Maryland game, and I told them, I said, that's going to be the first team that they play against that's going to scheme them how I would scheme them.
Yep.
And I said, if they just go, I said, if Syracuse is going to win this game, it's going to be with all unassisted goals. And I said, and they cannot score. And I literally said, you're not going to do that because they cannot score if it's not a slide and a bunch and that ball starts working. What's he happen?
And I think I think this is where I go back to the casual people, right? Because Matt and I had the conversations. We're like, Maryland is good. I hate that people underestimate Maryland. I hate John Tillman. Every Syracuse fan should hate John Tillman.
Yeah,
but should also love him because he is one of the best coaches in college lacrosse.
Yes, we can't beat him.
Because he is a guy, right? So Syracuse looks okay in the first half. Let's just be fair. Okay is the right way to say it. He is a second half coach. He always has been. He makes the perfect adjustment. And he schemed it like you said, right? He had it set up. He goes, if I have them set up in the first half, we get into halftime, we're good. I have my team. I know what my team can do. We got to make them come in. They're the favorites.
Yeah.
The dumbest thing, I hate betting because it made Maryland the underdogs and it made them everything that they needed to be at home.
Absolutely.
So you get there and then the takeaway, like I said, is the weather. And I tried to explain to people, it's not the weather, right? The road team, we can say that. First time on the road, I'm with that. Like, if you want to say that, but just say Maryland's good. It's okay to say Maryland's good.
I agree.
Like, it's okay to say Syracuse played bad.
I agree.
Like, it's also okay to say they made some dumb plays that cost them the game. It's not just the excuses left and right, left and right, left and right. Because then we get to Harvard, where I just happened to see the comment that I've told you about. And you know exactly what
I was at the game. I just couldn't I was at the game and just reading it. Well, I was just more annoyed by I understood the wordplay by the head coach of Harvard.
Yeah.
I get it.
Right.
I understand what you want to do for the strength of schedule and what you want to do for that your team has a better possibility of getting to the tournament. I understand that. Like I said, so I'm not knocking him. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I do think that Syracuse fans are in a level of delusion. We are, if we were to go to NFL reference, we're the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
At the beginning of every season, we are literally, it's our year. It's our year. It's our year. And then we get the first game of adversity and we get punched in the mouth by a team that we could possibly see come playoff time. And we're like, well, the weather was bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's different because we didn't have, their goalie's really old. Well, you know what I mean? It's all these different things. I'm like, that,
I was going to say, and to that point, right, I heard the undefeated talk going into the year, and I'm like, there's no way, So you say, if you look at the schedule, you say they beat the first three, Jacksonville, Towson. I'm okay with that.
Me too.
In my brain, they were going to lose to Maryland. They just were because they it's the away game. Maryland, you have the perfect storm going into College Park.
Yes.
It's just the way it works out. It sucks. Like I said, I can say it a million times. I hate Maryland, but they're good enough where, like you said, they're going to punch them in the mouth and they're going to get them.
Yeah.
I said to people, I thought Harvard and Utah were going to be the bounce back, right? Because that was your get right games.
Harvard was supposed to be the get right game.
Right. And you knew Utah was kind of going to be, to be fair,
a trap game. I thought that game was going to be a trap game if we were feeling good about ourselves.
Yeah. I think the best thing, I don't want to say the best thing, is losing to Harvard, right? Because then it gets that taste back in their mouth. I don't want to say it that way, as an excuse, but it gave them the fire going into Utah. They needed that trip to kind of get there.
Harvard was hard to watch.
Yeah.
There was just a lot I got from that game. Yeah. But typical fan, I mean, if I just simply showed you just the possessions and just the face-offs, I just asked you, can you guess what the score was to this game? And I just did the stats without giving you a score. Everybody and their mama would have said Syracuse won by at least 7 goals.
It's funny you said that because I did that to Matt. I said, I'm not going to tell you the team.
Yes.
I'm just going to read off the shots, the face-offs. I think it was the ground balls or
whatever. Ground balls.
It was something like Syracuse won 99% of the face-offs. Just a rough example.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was I don't have the paper in front of me. It was a lot too little for ground balls. Yeah. Let's just be, and then the shots I think were kind of close, but that's not really right. You and I know, like, that's not the determining factor. I look at face-offs and ground balls, and I say that's the team that should win.
Possession.
Whether that's a good thing, whether that's a bad thing, that's my lacrosse brain. Like, you win, and the clears. You win those three facets. You should, let's be fair, should win every game if you win those three every time. Yeah. But when you have, and I think the Harvard thing kind of pointed out to me, and Matt and I kind of talked about it. I love Johnny Mullen. I'll say this till I hate a face-off guy that goes down and shoots it, and it's more on the attack than it is on him. There's nobody to back up the shot.
That's not his fault, though. That's not his problem, though. It's the attack.
I know, but it's the way it works out, right? Because everybody looks at Johnny Mullen and says, okay, you should shoot that.
Yeah. Right, absolutely.
And I'm not blaming him. It's more the communication aspect. I think that's the way my brain thinks about it, right? Because somebody has to see him coming down and say, okay, where's their closest pole? Great. I got to be further, a little bit back, just on the off chance that
he misses.
Face-off guys can't shoot. Let's just be fair. A lot of
Yes.
Like, and there's a possession, right? We talk about the face-offs. They win the face-off, but now it's a turnover. Now you're looking at that face-off is wasted.
There seems to be, from what I've been seeing, and then obviously just every once in a while I do kind of meander down and just talk to a few people and just listen in and stuff. But there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
The units themselves don't play as a team. They just all have on the same uniform.
Yeah.
So like that offense, if I'm an offensive player on that team, I'm just telling you how a locker room works. If I get,
that's why I bring you on for this. That's why I bring you on for this side of it. So
if I score, look, coaches aside,
if
I score 15 goals, and we lost, at some point in time, y'all gonna start looking at each other across the room like, yo, like 15 goals in modern day lacrosse, that should win you 95% of your games.
Yeah. Unless you're playing a team that can run up and down and just obviously
So I get it. In that 5%, we lost to Harvard. But if you would have told me, all right, we scored 15, but lost to Maryland 16-15, we lost to Notre Dame 16-15, we lost to Virginia 16-15, I'd be like, okay. That makes sense.
Right, they're good teams. They're gonna put up those numbers.
They're gonna put up those numbers. Yeah. I get it. And then the face-offs aren't gonna be that. They're gonna be 50-50 on those numbers. Okay, that's gonna make more sense to me.
Right.
But how that game went, and if you watch, like I said, at some point in time, if I'm the defense as well, I'm in the huddle. The game is over.
Right.
We might be out and about, and I'm looking at the offense like, bruh, we got you some stops.
Yeah.
You threw the ball away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And the starting goalie, I don't know my man's name, the keeper from Massachusetts, my man
Can't think of that. Yeah. He was on his head. He was on his head when he needed to be. He's on his head.
He gets benched. If I'm him, I'm like, yo, defense, close defense in front of me.
Yeah.
Dunks. They're scoring dunks. They weren't scoring 16-yard bombs. Everything was inside 5 yards where he was catching with his hands free, and he's facing the cage, catching and scoring.
Yeah.
So
somebody's got to lay him out, though. Like that's the thing. Like somebody's got to send a message. Like
somebody's got to say, "Here's my thing. I would rather rule of thumb used to be we'd rather to let them know that if you come within our invisible 5 yard by 10 yard,
right,
I'll take a penalty in the first quarter.
Yep.
Even
I'll send a message for the rest of the game to not come into that spot. Yeah.
We'll take a 1 minute. They score. If not, they know every time they come in here, somebody gonna get decapitated.
Right.
And then it just kind of, but they don't have an identity.
Right.
I think that the problem right now is that they're almost like they're playing a lot of not even hero ball, but the units themselves do not play together. They play as 3 separate units. And when you're playing with 3 separate units and you're not on the same page, when you get into a nip and tuck game, and you're not used to getting punched in the face, it starts turning into, well, if the offense score more goals.
Right.
Well, if the defense could have got us a stop.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that also tells a stat too, right? During your time specifically, there was balanced scoring. There always was. There was at least one person on one unit, right?
Yes.
Whereas in now, and I guess this goes as a criticism. There's one game where the attack puts up all the points.
Oh.
And then it's the next game where the midfield, Joey gets shut down for some reason, and then the midfield puts up numbers. There's never that game yet. I'll say yet because there still is obviously that chance where they put up a balanced scoring sheet.
They won't this year, though. I think the way that Marsh has built the offense,
right,
because it's positionless, which to watch it is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I didn't say I don't enjoy watching Syracuse play offense.
Right.
It's beautiful. But it is too – there's no – depending on what concept that you run, whether it be from behind the cage or up top, there's supposed to be a true beneficiary of the way the offense runs.
Right.
When you play positionless, then that means that pretty much it's like if a guy's open, then a guy's open, and then if not, you move it on. But that's not so. And I hate to say this, but lacrosse is not supposed to work that way.
Yeah,
it's kind of like you have a guy.
Yeah,
on attack, and you have a guy.
Yep.
At midfield, and if you're lucky, you get two of both. Yep. So you have two guys that can that can carry the ball at an incredibly high level, that can draw a slide, and they can make the defense work, so that now the two other players that make up your six on offense can get opportunities as well. That's what you're supposed to have. Yeah. If you look at the way the team is constructed, they're the worst part. The biggest liability of the Syracuse team is between the lines, our midfield.
Yep.
Our midfield, we just don't have one.
Well,
I love those boys, but we don't have one.
I was going to say the other thing that obviously sticks out, right, is where's the second midfield line? It's always been there, and you know this. For a while, it was the first, second, and third. You could balance it, right?
Yeah.
You get some scoring from the second.
Yes.
Your thirds would give you a little burn. If nothing else, they give you a little burn for your first and seconds to get that rest. And they get some assists, they get some points, they get some production.
Yes.
There is no production. Let's just be fair. Like, there is no production from the second line, because when Wyatt Hoddle, and I love him, and it's going to sound like I'm going to criticize him, but when he's the guy who's scoring your goals, and that's the guy who you rely on for your scoring, and I'm not criticizing him, right? Because he's
number 19, correct?
Yeah, he's this kid.
I agree.
Like, when he's the kid that you're relying on as a second midfielder, that says more about the coaching, in my opinion. And I hate it's the setup of how it's done.
There's a twofold to that.
Yeah.
Either Marsh does not believe that the guys that are behind the starters are that good.
Right.
Or, because to me, this is more of a philosophical thing.
Yeah.
If you look at how Syracuse has been constructed in the last 5 years, their starters can play with anybody.
Yep.
But they don't have depth. And that's the reason why you don't go far in the tournament.
Right.
Because once you get to the tournament and you've only been running your guys into the ground, hypothetically, you're a torn ACL. You're an injury away from it really just going to crap. And I think that's my bigger concern with Marsh is, bro, to watch you guys play offense is beautiful.
Yeah.
Problem is that if it's not Sam English getting the defense to move from up top, you have no other options, because you got pretty much attackmen that are playing in your other two positions at midfield. So it makes you very vulnerable on the other side. The other part is you're also, so like I said, either your philosophy is you just like to run your horses,
right,
and you really don't trust your second line, or, dog, your recruiting must not be very good if you can't put some of those guys out there. Because Q's used to be about the All-American that was sitting behind the All-American.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be. Like, there was a dude, he'd be on the bench, and I'll be like, yo, I'm playing I'm playing behind a midfielder of the year.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you're out there, you're playing, and they know you can contribute. The problem is that if Sam English has a bad game, then we're really screwed. If JT has a game where it's not falling or whatever, and he can't get his hands free to get passes off, but the guys aren't finishing, then we're up the creek without a paddle a lot of times. And we're so attack dependent that if we play more athletic defenses, a la, in this particular case, a la Maryland,
they're gonna stay in front all day, and you're just gonna they're gonna say Owen. They're gonna say Owen and what's the name? Well, who's my other attackman? Finn.
And Finn, go make a play.
Yeah.
We're gonna let you get the ball. Go make a play.
Well, and that kind of speaks to the positionless, right? Because Finn worked as a midfielder. He just did. And I don't know what their brain what you're talking about with the offensive philosophy. You have somebody like Trey Deer, who is a designed attackman who would fit perfectly in that attack system. But then you put Finn Thompson because you for lack of better words, you lack the depth at attack. I don't know if lack of letter. It's not the right way to say it, but like
no. I get what you're getting at, though.
They don't trust it. That's the way that I'll phrase it.
That's I was gonna say. That really, you just got to cut through it.
Yeah.
He put Finn to me. Finn is I love Finn.
Right. Yeah, I know he's your favorite. It's okay.
My favorite is he's 23.
Yeah.
Finn is such a hit or miss, because you're praying that the team that you're praying that the guy that's guarding him is a ball watcher.
Yeah.
Because if he's not a ball watcher and he stays on Finn, Finn's just out there. And that's the thing with Finn is Finn he'll just be out there. Yeah. With Trey's the same way. Yeah. Because of the positional stuff, the way he runs offense is he's hoping that the defense slides prematurely or makes mistakes in slides so that the ball and the skips can start happening. Because that's when Syracuse is beautiful. Right. But when you play a Maryland that's not going to fall for it, and they're literally telling you, we gave up 5 goals in the first half. Yeah. Let's see how the second half goes. Right. We're not going to slide anymore. Good luck. Let's just see what it looks like.
And I was going to say, and that speaks to the Birtwistle injury as well, right? Because he was such a great piece to have on the second line, because he's exactly what I'm talking about with the scoring. He was that one threat that you had that you knew could probably get by a couple of seconds if you need it, right? He's the guy that could get by people. And now you lose him, and now it's just, okay, we're going to plug and play. And there's going to be some people out of position, unfortunately. It's just the way it's set up.
The young man, number 19, if you look at how that young man came into the fold, I'm not trying to offend dude. They weren't ready. They were not expecting to have to use him. Yep. The way that that young man came out, he's played exemplary. But if you look at the way the first 5 games had went, he wasn't playing much.
No, and I think that thing speaks to a thing, right? Because last year he's playing defensive midi. Obviously, we know a lot of those. Like a lot of the kids, that's their first run. If you have enough, that you
get you on the field, absolutely. Yep. Get you on the field.
But he was quick enough on defense, right? So you keep in front of everybody. You keep him in front of everybody. Yeah. And I think, for the lack of better words, they expected him to do the same thing on offense. They said, okay, you're small, you're shifty, you're quick. Yeah. Get by this pole that's 255, or get by this pole that's 6 foot. You know what I mean? Like just like a bigger defenseman. Get by him with the quickness, and it hasn't worked out that way. Let's just be fair and honest. Like he's hit a couple of outside shots, but none of it's been okay. I'm going to go by them.
You've also got to look at some of the players that have underachieved. Okay, like Tucker's my guy.
Yeah.
Tucker,
I've talked to Tucker a bunch, so I'll say the same thing.
Tucker, the way that they hyped you was you were supposed to step on the field.
Yeah.
He's not playing at all. My man Roa, love Luke, but I don't trust him on the field.
Yeah.
He scares me with the ball.
Yeah.
So if you're in a game where you're in a tight game, you have a guy out there where you're not sure of his decision making, he makes it difficult. So so again, if Roa was a starter, how is Roa not a starter again? They're telling you is we're rather go with what we have behind you because it's actually not that bad.
Right.
We were shocked by this, which they shouldn't be because if they're playing these players more, then it shouldn't be a shock to how well number 19's playing. But Roa, bro, you missed a few games. You should be starting right away if they trusted your game and they knew who you know what I mean? You've been
I mean, to be fair, we saw it with somebody like Griffin Cook a couple of years ago, right?
Yes.
They hyped him in and they built him into the starter. So you expect him to be the starter, and now all of a sudden he's coming off the bench, and it's like, okay, you had this much faith in him to begin the year, which is fine. I don't care about that. If you have that faith in Roa, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but keep it consistent with that. You thought he was good enough to play, then come out and say that. Then you can say he underachieved or whatever. You can say however you want to phrase it, but come out and be blunt about it. Don't beat around the bush and say, for whatever, we'll use Sammy as an example, right? Because Sammy's the number one example.
Sure.
Sammy's better than Roa. Okay, that we knew that last year, though.
Yes.
That's not a shock. Like we knew the first mid-step line was going to be better than Roa. It's not a shock. He's better as an attackman. He just is. Once again, it speaks to your position list the way you're talking about it, right? Because there's a lot of attackmen that are running the midi right now. That's just
it's gonna kill you in a game you need.
Yeah.
You're gonna get into a situation where there's gonna be a turnover, a shot save,
right?
And your ex-attackman is up at the top of the formation,
right?
And the ball's gonna go over his head.
Yeah.
And they're gonna say, Joe, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Because the field is unbalanced. It's not balanced. So, but we don't know what they have behind them because the problem is that you really haven't made a conscious effort to let these boys get some actual playing time, meaningful games. And it's not going to get any better. And like I said, God bless Burt Whistle because it hurts with him because he was so important to the games when you get into the Virginias and the Notre Dames because that was a guy who had experience.
Yep.
But some of the guys now, it's not even that it's not just that they're unproven. It's just that they haven't been able to get a chance to prove themselves.
Right.
And we haven't even started ACC.
I was just gonna say, and you're looking at the rest of the schedule, right? Manhattan's the one game where you're like, okay, that's the game. That's the get right game. That's the game where if you're gonna get the meaningful time, you give Wyatt Huddle a bunch of minutes to give, if nothing else, to give the first middies a rest, and you say, here, ACC play is coming up.
Yes. This
is when you get your burner. The problem is, though, and Matt and I have talked about it, Colgate's better than people expected. That was a game where you kind of we were like, okay, that's another get right game. Before the season, it's a get right game by definition. And if they show up like they did against Harvard, against Manhattan won't be a get-right game either for them. Because if Manhattan comes in and says, if Manhattan's in the game in the fourth quarter, we talked about it early, the killer instinct. They're in trouble. I hate to say it that way. Like, I want them to blow them out. I just truly do. I wish Gary would put up 25 or 30. It's not going to happen. Let's just be fair and honest. Like, it's not going to happen, but that's the game where I want them to put up a lot of points. And then you get into the fourth quarter. Like I said, you play a huddle for the fourth quarter, and you say, here's your chance to lead the second middies. Lead the second middies this quarter.
Based on how the team has been playing, unfortunately, I think he's going to be saying to Roa, it's time to just kind of – I'm saying, like, again, Roa's been back has been back for a game and a half now.
Yeah.
So, if anything, he would be starting this upcoming game. But I'm sorry, I'm not putting you back out there against Johns Hopkins.
No,
And
you don't want him though.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what you're gonna do, because that of all the games where you feel actual pressure, where you're like, this really means something different than the other games,
right?
National title game or not, Final Four weekend or not, the kids will feel that, whoa, this is different.
Yeah,
this is different.
Yeah,
and I'm looking at it like, who are you going to put out there regarding this? Again, Sam English is an obvious.
Right.
Trey's playing out of position.
Yeah.
But you're getting offensive players. You're not getting midfielders. That's a problem.
Well,
you need midfielders.
And somebody asked me this, so I'll ask you this, because you're the midfield expert. You're the better. So, are they burning Sam English out with the offensive and the defensive?
Sam wouldn't be getting burned out if there were two other ones like him.
Yeah.
So he played with one last year with Stevens.
Right. Yeah.
So him and Stevens, correct, because him and Stevens were like, all right, we ain't both gonna get back on defense.
Yeah. So you come off the field, I get back, we're good.
You stay, right? Yeah. You stay, I'm off. We get the subs on.
Yeah.
I stay, you go. Yeah. But if you have somebody again, so if you need at least two or three players that can get back on D.
Right.
The problem with Syracuse, the way they construct it, is either you got freaks of nature athletes that you haven't ever had them on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
So Sam is doing a lot. Sam is obviously a man after my own heart. He's my favorite because he plays the position how I played it.
Right.
He does everything. He's on the wings, right? He's got ground balls. He's offense. He's defense. He clears the ball. Like, he does everything. Right. But he's not getting burnt out as much as you've done a poor job of filling the cover with somebody else that can do what he does behind him. There should be somebody behind him. We all had somebody that we followed when we were at Hughes that was like that. I followed Matt Abbott.
Right. Okay? I was going to say, that's a perfect example of somebody, like, obviously with that, because that, just like you said, right? There was a guy that if you needed a burn, Matt, it's your turn to go.
You go.
Matt, you go. Or if he needs a burn, Jovan, it's your on. I don't want to say burnt out. I guess that's the wrong way to say it. It's like you were talking about, though. Come tournament time, you want him as rested as you can be.
Correct.
And
he's a one trick right now with him. The way they're using him,
he's
a one trick pony.
Right.
Because he's the only one who does what he does on the team. And the problem is that you're praying that he doesn't get hurt.
Right.
If he pulls a hamstring or something medically happens to that kid, the midfield has been our weak point all year. It's going to get it'll get drastically worse in a hurry.
Right.
If he's not there.
Right. Because he's the one guy that's constantly He's the one guy that's constantly producing. Every game, he's a consistent guy, whether it's assists, whether it's little stats.
Yes.
It's not obviously you know this. It's not always the goals. It's not always the assists. He's always contributing something, though. You always see him in the stat line. There's never a zero all across his board.
Correct.
Whereas in a lot of midfielders for Syracuse, there are right now. Like, there's no shots. There's no – because like we said before, the attack is ball dominant. And that's just the way that they are right now.
Yeah.
And it works. I don't know. You may disagree with this. It works for the most part, right? For a lot of teams. Because if you have a defense, and we can kind of touch on the defense because I want to kind of transition to that. Because we've talked a lot about the offense. I got a lot of thoughts about Jimmy McCool, but I want to get to that.
Sure.
But it works if you have a dominant defense, right? Because like you said, if the attack turns it over, now I still have three midfielders who can get back.
Yeah.
Versus midfielders who they do this every year and it bothers the crap out of me. They throw an errant pass and then the ball doesn't roll out of bounds because the way lacrosse ball seems to bounce in the dome, it bounces right close to the end line and it stops.
Never goes out.
Yeah,
it never goes out.
And then you have the opposing team who picks it up, and now you're in a fast break scheme, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And then you're hoping that Sammy English, you're just hoping he gets back. And you're hoping they can get Carter Rice on it. You're hoping that you can get the transition, obviously. And it never works out that way. I hate to tell people this, you know this, obviously, like unless your subs are perfect, it's never going to work out that way on transition games.
No, because you're taught. It's like elements of basketball are obviously in lacrosse, but like you're taught that the field should never be as a midfielder. You're playing the position of like the top point, so you're taught that worst comes to worst, the ball cannot go over your head. That's how you're taught. Do not let it go over your head.
Right.
So if I'm on crease, then I gotta be praying that the guy, the midfield is behind me.
Right.
It's a shot save or whatever. That as I'm getting back in transition, whether me coming off the field, whether me getting in the hole, that we're not outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that our midfielders are taught that. They're not told that. They're just, hey, get back on defense without understanding one needs to go to ball, one needs to get at least to 10 yards, and then turn. They're not doing those things.
And I think that's where you and Matt Abbott were great examples, and I'll bring that up specifically, right? Because Matt Abbott and you could get back. And that's just the way it was, whether it was whoever, if you were both on the field. Matt had the position where he's at midfield, he's waiting. And now he can see everything that's coming.
Correct.
Versus now where they're at the 30-yard line. And if you have some out, you obviously know this. If you have somebody coming out of the box for, let's just use Maryland as an example. If they have a midfielder coming out of the box on the offensive end, there's that, it's gone. You're not going to catch up to that. If you're at the 30 and they have a streaking attackman, they have a streaking, somehow it works out. They V-cut and it just works out that way, right? Because but I want to switch to the defense because I didn't see it the first couple of games, but I started to see Jimmy McCool not see the low shot, and I started to see a lot more teams go to the bounce. I don't know if you saw the same thing or.
Yeah.
I hate to see that despair in your face. I'm not trying to.
No, I feel bad for Jimmy because right now he's being blamed for a defensive disparity. They are my best friend will tell you. We had this conversation. We've had it a few times. Our close defense.
Yep.
I said we'll struggle. I said this is the beginning of the year. I will say it now. I'll say it to the end of the year. We will struggle with great ball-carrying attackmen.
Yeah.
We are going to struggle. If you watch that Harvard game, I don't remember the young man's name, but number 26 was giving our best cover guy fits.
Yeah.
He was giving him fits. Now, like I said, we have not went into the ACC play. They have a lot of talented.
They got a lot of attackmen that are gonna. So well, I mean, even Hopkins though, right? Like even.
Oh yeah.
Like this is where the gauntlet starts. This is where it starts. Where you're like, okay, we're gonna really find out what this team is like. Because if there's a couple adjustments, not a couple, there needs to be more than a couple. If there's adjustments made on defense, and you say maybe we go zone more. And we just try and keep everything.
Stay in zone. There's I would rather you just start in the. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. This is why I trust you with your expertise for this. So
there's a great example of this in 2011, my senior year of college.
Right.
That where Dom Stars just said, "F it. It's not sexy, but I got a pretty darn good goalie, and I got the best attackman in lacrosse on the other side of the field."
Right.
We're going to possess the ball. We're going to play zone, make it get outside shots. And if we lose that way, then so be it. They're going to have to make us come out of zone.
Yeah.
And they won the national championship that way with Gettleman and Steele Stenwick winning the tournament that year. It's not sexy, but I don't believe that the close defense and the midfield defense, they don't play as one unit.
Right.
They don't play collective good defense.
Right.
They own the defensive midfield part to both D mids, shorties, and the LSM. They're not the problem,
right? But
they're not good at playing team defense.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, although they own their matchup,
right?
Close defense is looking at it the same way of, bro, he needs some help, but you don't have a 1, you don't have a 2,
Yep.
or you don't know when to slide, or
Right.
more importantly, which I'm starting to see is they don't trust the philosophy of their defensive coordinator, and that's why it looks so ugly.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I noticed, at least one of the things I jotted down was the second slide. It's not the first slide because
Correct.
they're jumping. It's the second slide, right? You
Yeah.
know what the second slide is. I explained it to people before. Just I broke it down as best I could to a basic
Yes.
level because there are a lot of people who don't see the second slide.
No.
If you're just watching the game, you see the first slide. You don't see anybody else, right? When you're watching it and you've played the sport or you've watched the sport enough, you see the second slide.
Yeah.
And they seem to be sliding really late. And it's kind of what you're talking about, the communication. It's a combination, and I don't know how to fix that. I guess that's the way that I would say it.
At the beginning of the year, you must sit down and you must be very honest about what your personnel does well and what they don't do well.
Right.
But you cannot be offended by what you don't do well.
Yeah.
Our 08 and 09 teams, I can tell you, we sucked at sliding.
Right.
So our philosophy was everybody own your matchup.
Right.
Because, we'll have to slide, but we're not good at it.
Right.
We're not good at it.
Right. When we need to.
Fundamentally, we're not good at it.
Yeah.
We are known for the Beardsleys or the McCabe's or the Joel Whites where they're on an island.
Right.
Go do your thing. We over here.
Yeah.
You put the ball down. I'm an outlet.
Yep.
If not, once you
do what I can, and then
once you got past the ball, my turn.
Yeah. You get off the field, we do what we do. Yeah.
And we do what we do. But you must know that.
Right.
They are trying to do this. Well, we're going to own our matches, but we're showing support.
Right.
But you're not good enough individually. If you're going to own your match, you got to own your matchup. But it sounds like there's a lot of pride involved with the players not wanting to just go. If you're going to go zone, then you go zone. But then it's almost as if they're afraid to do it. And I do feel like at this point, the best thing that can be done for the team, the best thing they can do is more than likely just say, all right, we are not doing a good job of owning our matchup.
Yeah. So
we probably should go zone. Or it needs to be, Carter, you on an island, bro. Because they can't get by you.
Right.
Sabrina, and the other dude, number 35, bro, own your matchup. You doing well.
Yep.
Anything below GLE, bro, we gotta go. Cause I'm watching y'all turn. I'm watching attackman after attackman turn the corner on you, dude.
Yeah.
And you can't, like I said, you're not gonna like it.
Yeah.
But you gotta know that about the philosophy moving in. Or are you a Notre Dame where Notre Dame's they're all about recovery?
Yep.
Until more recently, actually, because now they're studs on defense.
Yeah.
But
they have the slides down though. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand.
They slide early and recycle because all they do is practice that. So because it's much easier.
I was gonna say, I think the other thing is as Carter, for an example of this, right? Carter's a great second slide. The problem is if Carter's a second, who's the third? And then you start playing the game of Carter slides down, right? The attackman beats him. Now no pole steps up on the midi. And now the same thing. Now Carter's guy, who he just had to run off of,
correct.
If he's obviously the second or the third, now they're wide open. So at some point, unless they go zone, and I don't want to say if they need to, that's just like the way, in my opinion, I agree with you. I don't want to say experiment. Like I was more saying they're going to have to, out of necessity, just to help, if nothing else, help their close defense out.
I'm a longtime Tennessee Titans fan.
I know this. Your struggle as a Tennessee football fan.
Heart hurts.
Yeah.
Regularly heart hurts. But I make this reference because historically, you got to know what your team's good at.
Yep.
The one we draft offensive linemen and running backs better than just about anybody.
Right.
Those are positions we hit on.
Yep.
Which means we're going to run the football a lot. So our defense, so we play top 10 defense.
Right.
And we'll have shorter games because we run the football a lot.
Right.
That's an identity thing. So going into a game, guys, we're not going to have as many cracks at it offensively, but our defense is going to be rested all the time.
Yeah.
We're going to win it. We can win a game only scoring 7 goals because our defense is so good, right? But with Syracuse right now, because of how helter-skelter they play, and because our defense is so lackluster on the other side,
right,
you got to have a magic number, and they don't even have a magic number. So, for example, if I'm the DC at this point, I'm like, bro, if we're not going to go zone defense, they just can't get to 12.
Right.
If they don't get to 12, we'll win.
So
let's just give a number. They can't give up 12. That's
a perfect transition to the Hopkins game. So like I said, I have the heart out in about 10 minutes. I want to touch on Hopkins, obviously. You're going to have to come back, and I want to get Matt back on because Matt has a lot of questions that I'm sure he'll probably send me a message and say, boy, I wish you'd ask Jovan this, or I wish you'd. But the number that I said when I was talking to Matt is I said 10, right? If you keep Hopkins below 10, that's your number.
Yeah.
If that's
in my head.
Right. Like, do I think they're going to hold them to that? No. Like, that's just, but is that the number that I want? Yes. That's the golden number for me. It can be 10, it can be 12. You just have to set a number and you say, we can't let them get past this point. Because if we let Hopkins get past that point, our offense can't recover enough. I don't want to say recover because that's not the right way. Our offense can't attack enough to make up that difference.
I believe outside of the ACC teams, the Chapel Hills of the Notre Dame, this will be the best and most sound defense that these boys will play this year.
Right.
And Hopkins is historically known for having some stalwart defenses.
Right.
I say that to say is that if you watch them play, that's a unit. That's That's a unit. They are very intact. And the players that are out there, they trust one another. Yep. So you're never out of miscommunication with the boys out there.
Right.
That being said, just based off simple cohesion, I don't see us having a lot of success because they have the athletes and the depth.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe that. I don't see the game going very well.
The other thing that I said, and I love to call out people. I love to do it because it's my favorite thing to do.
Sure.
As a person who hasn't gone to a game this year, it's my favorite thing to do. I sent a message out to a lot of fans, and I said, you better be there on Sunday, right? Because we talked about it with the women's. This is the game where you make it the Loud House. And you pack the dome, whether it's the lower bowl, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be upper deck. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like there's a rumor that I've been told that there's 7K. That's the tickets that have been sold so far. That's the number that I heard. That's a rough number. I want more than that. I'll be blunt in saying this. I want
that game should be a 10. I mean, you should be in the 10s. Like
it's a Sunday. It's 2:00. It's a perfect time. Like this isn't a Friday night 4 o'clock game that Syracuse loves to schedule every year. That they're great at scheduling those. This is a game, and it's Youth Lacrosse Day. So every parent that has that kid, bring that kid out, get that exposure. Absolutely. Make it the Loud House, and then what you talked about, kind of with the women's side, right? You make it intimidating for Hopkins. You make it intimidating when they're clearing the ball. You make the noise when they're clearing the ball.
Yes.
You make the noise when Syracuse. Every time there's a timeout, you know the game. You know exactly what I'm talking about. As loud as you can. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I also think that we haven't done a good enough job of reaching out to the boys after you graduate.
Yeah,
we started a mentoring service, which is cool.
Okay,
but I do think that we also haven't really taught them or just walked them through the dome is supposed to be, like I said, your 11th man.
Yeah,
and so when you get in that environment and you start seeing the amount of people that are there, they're got to be in tune with you. Yeah. I think that the boys just go out there and they're like, yeah, I'm just playing here, no biggie.
Yeah.
And I think that they miss, there'll be, this will be a game where the kids will be like, that the young men that I mentor will look back and be like, yo,
that was what you said was right. Like,
that was crazy. So
Yeah.
like you got to look at it from the perspective of like, these guys are unfamiliar. I understand that. But at the same time, it's like, of all the games that you're, like I said, you're going to feel the pressure of it.
Yeah.
You're going to, playing at Syracuse, you'll feel it on Sunday.
Yep.
Because it's the only show in town.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like the university is promoting the game. It'll be the game that day.
I was gonna say, I'll say it. You don't have to say it as Lem. I'll say it as a fan. This is the first time, in my opinion, the university has promoted lacrosse all year. That they've actually talked about, like, come to the game. We want people at the game. I want to dive. I want to do a whole episode on that with you, because on the marketing side of it, because Matt's on the marketing side a little bit as well. Okay. So I'm sure he has some thoughts on that. I want to do a whole episode on that with you, just talking about how they can market. Right? Because, I mean, you have tailgates and all that fun stuff, but there's a lot more, in my opinion, that the university could do. I'll just say it that way, from the marketing side. I don't want to dive into it too much, because I want to finish on the Hopkins talk. Obviously, that's a whole thing, that can of worms that, like I said, I could spend another hour talking about how both sides, we've kind of joked about it, obviously, but the women's side as well. There's better ways to market both products, is all I'm going to say about it. I'll leave it at that right now. I'll put a note in that, because that's what I definitely want to go back. And like I said, Matt's on the marketing side. He knows about it. I'm curious to get his thoughts, because, like I said, him and I have talked behind the scenes about what they can do. Yeah. But I want you on the record. I'll phrase it that way, but not even in a bad way. Just get your thoughts on how they can improve it.
In regards to marketing?
Yeah.
I think that there was a time at Syracuse, we're talking about lacrosse specifically, right?
Yeah, well, I don't care. This is a lacrosse thing. I don't care about anything else right now.
Well, one of the issues that we've had over the course of the last, 20 years, and I'll say, because, I graduated, golly, it's crazy to think the time is going where the time is going. But was it 14 years ago at this point? Yeah. Going on 14 years ago. But so I guess I can say in the last 20 years, even before I was there, we had a connection to the Haudenosaunee.
Yep.
We did more outreach. We did more about the origins of the game.
Yep.
We don't really do that now. You can put up a flag in the corner of the dome, which is cool. It's amazing.
Yeah.
To pay your respect.
You have a little craft fair that they've occasionally done out front. I know I've seen that a couple times.
Yeah, but like, you haven't put the ties of the indigenous back into the
into
the fold.
And that relates to numbers too, right? Because you embrace the Haudenosaunee, you embrace, I'll just say the res. That's the way that I'll phrase it.
Sure.
And, you embrace that. There goes your attendance numbers, right? Because then you've got all those people. Now you sit there and learn that, and now there's another 1,000 people, or 200. The number doesn't really matter, even if it's 10, right? It's still more than you get now.
Right. You don't. So, like, most of for example, our indigenous players on the team now are from Canada. Yeah. So, like, it's not, and I'm not saying, because again, Trey Deere is actually one of the kids I actually mentor. Okay. So, like, it's different when you have a Canadian indigenous kid as opposed to, like, you're when I was playing with Jeremy.
Yep.
He's literally
that's a great example. That's a perfect way to say it. Like,
he's from the back. He's from the backyard.
Right.
So he's right there, and he's obviously All-American status player. He's right there. You're gonna bring in so many people just because he's on the team. Right. He's a starter, and he's balling. So there's not a lot of outreach when it comes to the Onondaga Nation. Like, I don't feel like we're doing enough outreach to get them back into having some of the best players even entertain coming to Syracuse. And I think that if you start, that's a good starting point of what I remember, because that was one of the most important things that Simi Jr., like, that's how he built his legacy, was the amount of people of color, especially in particular the Haudenosaunee, that he was given opportunities to come and play up on the university.
I mean, I was going to say the other thing quickly, and then I want to get a prediction before we finish because I do want to get that number. The other thing that I'll say is look at the community service, right? You just talked about it in regards to Haudenosaunee. You just talked about it, but they can do more. And I know they're college kids. I know they have a lot of time. I'm not gonna criticize.
No, that's the
them.
university's fault. That's more. That's the university.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like
Absolutely.
you can devote more community servicing if you
doubt.
want to the city of Syracuse in general. Like you can have kids go.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say what you do, so I don't want to. I don't know.
No, you are getting into territory that, like you said, that's for another podcast episode.
Yeah.
Especially from when I left Syracuse, New York, to when I came back in June of last year.
Right.
He has a completely different place.
So we'll do that because I want to touch on that because obviously what you do now, like I said, I don't. If you don't want to say it, that's okay.
No, I don't know.
I don't know if you want to, but we can dive on that and then we can talk more about how that can. Your job now, we'll just say, could be affected by that. I'll just phrase it that way.
Fair enough.
So I'll end it on this. I always like to ask people what the prediction would be. So what's your prediction for Sunday? Realistic. Obviously not Syracuse. I don't want to say it that way because I know you'll give the realistic, but not
it's one
Syracuse.
of those. It's the two. Okay, if Syracuse wins, the score is going to be like 14-12.
Okay.
But my gut says that this game is going to be hot 13-9.
Okay.
Because the way Syracuse will get opportunities, more than likely man up.
Right.
And probably score a lot early because we're known for that.
Right.
But I do believe that, like you talk about the halftime adjustments.
Yeah.
When they come out. So I think that my gut says 13-9 hot, just because I don't think that offensively we have enough firepower. We are not deep enough to solve enough of their, enough of their problems. And I don't believe that I can see us in the long term. I don't see it. I just don't see it going in our favor. I don't. I think it'll be 50-50 on ball. I'll be 50-50 on ground balls and 50-50 on the face-offs. So we won't be getting a huge amount of the ball. But my gut says 13-9 hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I had it like a 2-goal game because I'm kind of the same point, right? If Syracuse wins, it's not going to be a blowout. We both know that. Like they're not. If they do, I'll write the headline and I'll say national championships, this and that, and
right.
And I will lead you will lead the. I'm assuming you'll lead if they come out and do that, right? Like
absolutely.
I'll lead the charge. I'll be all over social media. I'll see all your comments popping up after the Hopkins coach comments. Oh yeah, we're there. Oh yeah, we're there. Instead of oh no. That's how I'll say. You know what I mean by that. So no, I think it's going to be a 2-goal. I genuinely do. Like I'm kind of at the same point though, right? Because like if. Right. The Syracuse fan in me says Syracuse wins. I'll just say it that way, right? Like the realistic part of me says, I don't think they do. I hate to say it that way. Like, I don't want to sound like the critical person here. Like, but this was that game, like I said, that I circled between this and Maryland. They're going to either lose one or they're going to lose both because this is that game, like where you're like, okay, this is their game.
I would have said, I don't care about what happened between the Utah game or what happened in the Harvard game at this point. The only game I'd go back to recollect to is say, that was the first time, the Maryland game was the first time we got punched in the face.
Yep.
And these guys are coming in, forget to get punched in the face. These dudes coming with swords and shields.
Yeah.
We need
they're bringing a band. And they're bringing a band. So
we need to come in from Jump Street
and
not let them pounce on us the way that Maryland did.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get a result. But
and see, this is going to make me dive into another hour on this. Like I said, we could do this, but I obviously have my heart out in a couple minutes. I think there's something to be said about jumping on it early, right? Because Syracuse did jump on Maryland early. Like that's the thing that a lot of people forget. Like if you look at that first half, you obviously know you're up 7. You're up by that number. You should win. There shouldn't be any. Like it goes to the killer instinct, right? If you're up on Hopkins by 5 going into half, let's just hypothetical, obviously. Like you're up by 5,
put 10 more on them before they get to that number.
Yes.
And then when there's 2 minutes left in the game, okay, pull off if you want to call off the dogs, pass the ball around. Okay.
Right.
I want the game to be out of hand by that point though, because I don't want the 2 minutes to come down and then you're saying, okay, here's your 1-goal game. Luke Roa, we need you to get the game-winning goal. Or it doesn't matter who it is, right?
Yeah.
Joey, you got to get by this kid. We're down 1 with 10 seconds left. Nobody else moves. Now it's just the way it comes down. I don't have as much. The perfect way I'd say it is during your years and for a while, in the last 2 minutes, if it was down to 1 goal, I had faith that they could pull it out. I had faith that you guys could pull it out.
Absolutely.
And now, over the past couple of years, and people are going to hate this, but since Gary took over, that's the way that I'll say it. Right. I don't have as much faith as I used to, and people are going to dislike that because, like, the Gary seat is going to get hot. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah,
this will be the first year that I could think of in my career where my time, whether playing or after playing, where they're going to say, why is this guy the coach?
Yeah. And like, so the silent majority is saying it now.
I know. But I knew that last year.
Yeah.
You know, eventually the prodigal son routine was going to get old.
Yeah.
Somebody was eventually going to be like, okay, like, what have you done now? We get it. You're the greatest player of all time. What are you doing for my university? I'm paying these season tickets. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. My favorite, I was going to say, a couple of buddies in the season ticket section have a great nickname for him. They call him Coach Pockets. That's their nickname for him. Because there's even on I want to do a whole episode on this too, because I could dive into the Gary stuff.
Yeah.
A lot into the Gary stuff.
Yeah.
That a lot of people won't like. I'll just say it that way for a lot.
Well, yeah, they'll hate me then. Yeah.
Listen, I get the messages now. Like, okay, Gary's great. Nobody's debating him as a player.
No.
I'll never to cap it off on this. He was better as a women's coach than he is as a men's coach.
You preaching to the choir.
Like, and I hate to say it that way. Like, I wanted him to. Obviously, we had the talk. I think privately we had the talk. I wanted him to succeed on the men's side. I truly did. But
to the choir. I think what I've learned from people that I've spoken to, alum as well, female and male, was this idea that somehow your rings and somehow your successes as a player somehow translate into you're supposed to just automatically do that as a coach. And we've gotten plenty of argument about that, and I was like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah. So we'll end it on there though. For right now, like I said, I'll have to get with Matt, and then we'll get with you, and then we'll kind of figure out the marketing. We'll do a Gary Gayton marketing episode because we'll get a lot of I'll get a lot of the haters riled up with the marketing part too, because a lot of them hate the way that I say that.
I got plenty of answers for you. So
yeah. Well, that's why we want to talk about the marketing part, because we're all listen. Matt's local. I'm local. You're local. Obviously, now you weren't. I'll just say it. You're an Oklahoman that came back home. That's the way that I'll say it. But now you can see it from a different side. That's the way that I'll phrase it. So it's a different experience for you, like you said, coming back home versus seeing the Oklahoma and just hearing about it from your friends that lived in this area, right? Because you obviously had enough contacts then. So we'll So on that note, we'll end it. And it looks like I've lost Jovan. It wouldn't be the show without that. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and always go Orange.